Reading The Unknown Reality by Jane Roberts, a Seth book, Volume 2. Session 719. Seth states, I consider my own book, The Nature of Personal Reality, a Seth book, as a prerequisite for the exercises given here in this volume. So, I really hope you guys have read or listened to The Nature of Personal Reality. He's saying that for a really good reason, and he's going to explain. So he goes on, in that previous book, I discussed the ways in which you form your private experience through your beliefs. You have certain pet ideas, therefore, and you use them to structure your own worldview of the reality you know. It is important that you understand what your own beliefs are. Many of them might work quite well, quote, at home, end quote. But when you begin to journey away from that home station, you may find that those same ideas impede your progress. Other concepts are really not basically workable even in your own physical reality. A rigid, dogmatic concept of good and evil will force you to perceive physical existence as a battleground of opposing forces, with the poor, unwary soul almost as a buffer. Or you will think of the poor soul as a blackboard eraser, slapped between two hands, one good and one evil. Upon the blackboard in this homey analogy would be written the soul's earthly experiences. With the eraser, the, quote, evil hand, end quote. With the eraser, the evil hand would try to rub out all of the good and at the same time the, quote, good hand, end quote. The good hand would be trying to erase all of the evil. In such a case, all of your experiences become suspect. You will have a tendency to consider the body with its natural appetites wrong and deny them, while at the same time the physical part of you will look upon your, quote, good intents, end quote, as wrong and infringements upon its own existence. If you do not understand the natural grace of your being, then when you try some of the exercises given here, you may automatically translate them into a quite limiting set of beliefs. You are familiar with your own view of the world. As you leave your usual orientation, however, altering the focus of your consciousness, you may very well structure your new experience just as you do your physical ones. At the same time, you are more free. You are used to projecting your beliefs onto physical objects and events. When you leave your home station, those objects and events no longer present themselves in the same fashion. You often find yourself encountering your own structures, no longer hidden in the kind of experience with which you are familiar. These may then appear in quite a different light. You may be convinced that you are evil simply because you are physical. You may believe that the soul, quote unquote, descends into the body, and therefore that the body is lower, inferior, and a degraded version of, quote, what you really are, end quote. At the same time, your own physical being knows better and basically cannot accept such a concept. So in daily life, you may project this idea of unworth outward onto another person who seems then to be your enemy, or upon another nation. In general, you might select animals to play the part of the enemy, or members of another religion or political parties. In any case, in your private life, you may hardly ever encounter your beliefs in your own unworth or evil. You will not realize that you actually consider yourself the enemy. You will be so convinced that your projection onto others is the enemy that there will be no slack to take up, for all of your feelings of self-hate or self-fear will be directed outward. When you begin to leave your home station and alter your focus, however, you leave behind you the particular familiar receptors for your projections. Using the Ouija board or automatic writing, you may find yourself immediately confronted with this material that you have suppressed in the past. When it surfaces, you may then project it outward from yourself again, but in a different fashion. Instead of thinking you are in contact with a great philosopher or, quote, ancient soul, end quote, you may believe that you are instead visiting with a demon or a devil, or that you are possessed of an evil spirit. In such a case, you will have already been convinced of the power of evil. Your natural feelings denied will also carry the great charge of repression. You may be filled with the feeling that you are in the midst of a great cosmic struggle between the forces of good and evil. And indeed, this often represents a valid picture of your own view of the world. None of this is necessary. There is no danger in the exercises I suggest. You are in far greater danger the longer you inhibit your natural feelings, and alterations of consciousness often present you with the framework in which these come to light. If they do not in one way or another come to your attention, then it is very possible that the denied energy behind them will erupt in ruptured relationships or illnesses. Quote, psychic explorations, end quote. Psychic explorations never cause such difficulties, nor do they ever compound original problems. On the contrary, they are often highly therapeutic, and they present the personality with an alternative to continued repression that would be literally unbearable. If you are normally capable of dealing with physical reality, you will encounter no difficulties in alterations of consciousness or leaving your home station. Be reasonable. However, if you have difficulties in New York City, you are most apt to encounter them in a different form no matter where else you might travel. A change of environment might help clear your head by altering your usual orientation, so that you can see yourself more clearly and benefit. The same applies when you leave your home station. Here, the possible benefits are far greater than in usual life and travel, but you are still yourself. It is impossible not to structure reality in some fashion. Reality implies a structuring. If you take your own worldview with you all the time, however, as you travel, even in your own world, then you never see the, quote, naked culture, end quote. You are always a tourist, taking your homey paraphernalia with you and afraid to give it up. If you are American or English or European, then when you visit other areas of the world, you stay at cosmopolitan hotels. You always see other cultures through your own eyes. Now, when you leave your home station and alter your consciousness, you are always a tourist if you take your own baggage of ideas along with you and interpret your experiences through your own personal cultural beliefs. There is nothing unconventional about gods and demons, good spirits or bad spirits. These are quite conventional interpretations of experience with religious overtones. Cults simply represent counter-conventions. and they are as dogmatic in their way as the systems they reject. When you try these exercises, therefore, make an honest attempt to leave your conventional ideas behind you. Step out of your own worldview. There is an exercise that will help you. All right, practice element 13. Seth states, close your eyes. Imagine a photograph of yourself. Yes, we are finally back to photographs. In your mind's eye, see the photograph of yourself on a table or desk. If you are working mentally with a particular snapshot, then note the other items in the picture. If the photograph is strictly imaginary, then create an environment about the image of yourself. Look at the image in your mind as it exists in the snapshot and see it as being aware only of those other objects that surround it. Its world is bounded by the four edges of the picture. Try to put your consciousness into that image of yourself. Your worldview is limited to the photograph itself. Now in your mind, see that image walking out of the snapshot onto the desk or table. The environment of the physical room will seem gigantic to that small self. The scale and proportion alone will be far different. Imagine that miniature image navigating in the physical room, then going outside, and quite an expanded worldview will result. Many of you do not really want to step out of the photograph or leave your worldview, yet in the dream state you are far freer. You can pretend that dreams are not quote-unquote real, however, so you have your cake and eat it too, so to speak. Different varieties of dreams often provide frameworks that allow you to leave your own worldview under, quote, cushioned conditions, end quote. You step out of the normal picture that you have made of reality. Your alterations of consciousness frequently occur in the dream state, therefore, where it seems to you at least that your experiences do not have any practical application. You imagine that only hallucinations are involved. Many of your best snapshots of other realities are taken in your dreams. They may be over or underdeveloped and the focus may be blurred, but your dreams present you with far more information about the unknown reality than you suppose. In the most intimate of terms, your body is your home station. So when you leave it, you often hide this fact from yourselves. In your sleep, however, your consciousness slips out of your body and returns to it frequently. You dream when you are out of your body, even as you dream inside it. You may, therefore, form dream stories about your own out-of-body travel, while your physical image rests soundly in bed. You see, the unknown reality is not really that mysterious to you. You only pretend that it is. Sometimes you have quite clear perceptions of your journeys, but the active, native territories that you visit are so different from your own world that you try to interpret them as best you can in the light of usual conditions. If you remember such an episode at all, it may well seem very confusing, for you will have superimposed your own worldview where it does not belong. In dream travel, it is quite possible to journey to other civilizations, those in your past or future, or even to worlds whose reality exists in other probable systems. There is even a kind of, quote, crossbreeding, end quote, for you affect any system of reality with which you have experience. There are no closed realities, only apparent boundaries that seem to separate them. The more parochial your own worldview, however, the less you will recall of their dreams or their activities, or the more distorted your, quote, dream snapshots, end quote, will be. Okay, so Seth is going to give another brief but potent exercise, he states. But first, I just want to share that I don't have my notebook with me, but I remember a dream that I had where there was a bunch of stuff happened, but the main part I just wanted to tell you guys. It was an apple orchard type scene, and the apples on the tree were square, and it was really odd. So one of those dreams that you're not sure for sure if it was an altered reality or if I was just doing normal dreaming, but anyways. Okay, so going to practice element 14 now. Seth states, okay, so before you go to sleep, tell yourself that you will mentally take a dream snapshot of the most significant dream of the night. Tell yourself that you will even be aware of doing this while asleep, and imagine that you have a camera with you. You mentally take this into the dream state. You will use the camera at the point of your clearest perceptions. Snap your picture and mentally again take it back with you, so that it will be the first mental picture that you see when you awaken. You will, of course, try to snap as good a picture as possible. Varying results can be expected. Some of you will awaken with a dream picture that presents itself immediately. Others may find such a picture suddenly appearing later in the day, in the middle of ordinary activities. If you perform this exercise often, however, many of you will find yourselves able to use the camera consciously, even while sleeping, so that it becomes an element of your dream travels. You will be able to bring more and more pictures back with you. These will be relatively meaningless, however, if you do not learn how to examine them. They are not to be simply filed away and forgotten. You should write down a description of each scene and what you remember of it, including your feelings both at the time of the dream and later when you record it. The very effort to take this camera with you makes you more of a conscious explorer and automatically helps you to expand your own awareness while you are in the dream state. Each picture will serve as just one small glimpse of a different kind of reality. You cannot make any valid judgment on the basis of one or two pictures alone. Now, this is a mental camera we are using. There is a knack about being a good dream photographer, and you must learn how to operate the camera. In physical life, for example, a photographer knows that many conditions affect the picture he takes. Exterior situations, then, are important. You might get a very poor picture on a dark day, for instance. With our dream camera, however, the conditions themselves are mental. If you are in a dark mood, for example, then your picture of inner reality might be dim, poorly outlined, or foreboding. This would not necessarily mean that the dream itself had tragic overtones, simply that it was taken in the, quote, poor light, end quote, the poor light of the psyche's mood. Inner weather changes constantly. even as the exterior weather does. One dream picture with a dreary cast, therefore, is not much different from a physical photograph taken on a rainy afternoon. Many people, however, remembering a dark dream, become frightened. You even structure your dreams, of course. For that matter, your dream world is as varied as the physical one. Each physical photographer has an idea of what he wants to capture on film. And so to that extent, he structures his picture and his view. The same applies to the dream state. You have all kinds of dreams. You can take what you want, so to speak, from dream reality, as basically you take what you want from waking life. For that reason, your dream snapshots will show you the kind of experience that you are choosing from inner reality. All right, that is the end of dictation. However, Rob asks a question about Rob had seen himself, how he's seen himself as an old man from a strange angle, and it'll show you in the notes more about that description. So Rob's asking Seth about that. He says, "What about my little view of myself this afternoon as a very old man?" And Seth states, "It represented two things: an association with a definite past old age sensation and a quote-unquote precognitive moment in this life that you have not as yet encountered. Because you were psychically open, the position of your body and head acted as the associative bridge between the two events. You are not senile in either." And he ends at that. Now, there are some other notes here that Rob inserts, and I'm not going to read it, but you guys can pause and read. Actually, I want to go back to something interesting that was stated. I didn't want to ruin the flow, but earlier in this session. So I'm going to go back to that real quick. Alright, so up here it was break, and Jane had gotten some milk to drink at break, and everything was fine. She drank it fine, no problems. But then dictation began, and Jane in dictation, Jane while in trance, drank the milk. Basically, Jane's face started to make, wrinkled up. Her lips drew back distastefully, holding the empty glass of milk up to Rob, and her Seth voice boomed out. So Seth states at this point, "This is far different from any milk that I ever drank. It is like a chalk with chemicals, far divorced from any cow." Which is so interesting, right? Because the milk that we drink is not straight from a cow. I mean, it comes initially from a cow, but all the weird stuff that is put inside of our milk and other things. Hopefully a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. It's not natural. So anyways, you can read the rest of this. It says that basically Seth did not, take any more of that milk, pushed it aside. So let me go back to the actual notes now. Sorry, I just wanted you guys to hear about that because it is interesting. So the only note I'm going to read is note number 1, and it states, "In personal reality, you can see the 636th session in chapter 9, and much of the material in the 4 sessions making up chapter 12. So, I could also put the link, for chapter 1, personal reality, just in case you guys have not read or heard the nature of personal reality. This is so important to understand how you form your own beliefs and your view about everything. But I'm sure most of you have read it at some point in your lives. Hopefully. Anyways, so note 2, and I'm going to go down. Here's the rest of note 2, and it's basically Rob's wonderment of atoms, magnified to microphotography, and some stuff about Darwinism, neo-Darwinism, science, what we are taught, basically. And he's just, questioning, thinking, stuff like that. So if you want to pause and read. Alright, so here, anyone who's interested in note 4, for Rob's nap when he's seen himself as an old man from a strange angle. This is him describing it. You can just pause and read, and I'll go down. And there's the rest of it. And the rest of the notes, I'm not going to read either, so if you want to read them, there they are. And the next video is going to be about understanding your fears, shadows, and dreams as hallucinations caused by thoughts and feelings. That's just like a brief outline. There's going to be a lot more in it, but definitely check back for the next session.